Hi, Jace here. 2021 is getting set to go off here in about 36 hours or so. Let's hope this new year is a darn sight better than the last one, huh? I've got some goals for this coming year, and one of the big ones for me is the experiment. I'm going to be releasing one track every week for the next 52 weeks, at least trying to. And when I fail, not if, when, the idea is I'll be able to take the data that I learned from this experiment of trying to do something like this and apply it to my music making practice in a meaningful way that might have implications, good ones, for me for the rest of my life. This whole thing is an experiment. On today's show, I'm going to be getting a track ready for release. The very first step towards mastering out of the mixing department and the mastering department. All these things happen at the same time for me now. Mastering mostly at the end, but the mixing happens right, the moment I sit down to lay in the first track. So we're going to jump into this track and see where it goes for us today, and let's have some fun. Okay, here we are with the track. The title of this track is called Seesaw, and I guess what I'm going to do is go ahead and play through it. Now, let me go ahead and introduce you to the track here first. I'm going to close up these submixes momentarily. Okay. The template that I have created is one that lets me go from the very first idea all the way out to the last. And I've come up with this very carefully through trial and error and working with mixing and mastering engineers who chime in and offer their creative input too. It's designed to make the most out of Logic and get every last, droplet of power to make something happen in a good direction for my mixes and my masters. So I have a master out track that's at the top of my list. This listening bus over here, which I'm kind of in the way of. Let me move me out of the way. This listening bus right here is, this used to be stereo out. I've renamed it listening bus. The only thing that goes on these tracks are things that have that are metering for my master. I'll just go ahead and switch displays here for a second. Right now, the only thing I have up here is this listening the LUFS meter. I'm going to go ahead and pull up also a loudness penalty, loudness penalty, and I would point out that I am using SonarWorks. I've had my room calibrated, and I have a flat frequency response going on in here now. I've actually checked that a couple of different ways. This thing actually really works. So then, when we move back to our main display here, as I said, the stereo bus is now the listening bus, and then I have the master out here, and then it goes backwards through the submix master, which everything from this entire mix comes through here, and I have the all reverb on its way through my chain that's finally sent through this reverb master, so I can kill all reverb for the entire project with one switch. And as you can see, I have tracking throughout. I've got my keys tracks. And in this particular production, I have a piano call and a piano answer. And I name those things specifically because it really does. The phraseology of what's happening in this track, you'll see very quickly that it is built that way to have a call-out phrase and an answer that's happening back. And I have a percussion submix, which I still have to stem out on a couple of these tracks here very shortly. And then we have the strings bus, which today I have my violins 1, which are the bright yellow. Then these kind of yellow ochre tracks are the violin 2. Then we have the orange, the violas, the cello are the bright red, and the double basses are dark. I have a few woodwinds here that are inside of here, and I have my reverb area here, which is the main effects send that I'm using for this project. And with all that now, let's just go ahead. I'm going to close up these other submixes because the initial focus of our track is going to be on the keys today and seeing what we can do with those. Okay, so aside from the first round of basic EQ, and of course a lot of volume mixing and some pan, that is a pretty raw mix beyond the scope of that. And there's a lot of room for it to blossom into what it wants to be. But before I go grabbing at knobs and faders, what I'm going to do is hit the pause button here and really shift focus onto something that's far more important. I'm going to take a look at this track now and talk about its purpose and, you know, what that might lead me to do. So the purpose of this track, as I'm defining it, is to create a soundtrack or a scene in the listener's head. You know, it's kind of like you're encouraging them to have an imagination and come up with their own story, you know. It encourages them to share their opinion of what it's about, and to have their own experience with this track in a way. I wanted to own it themselves, the experience of whatever it can be conjuring up. And to be quite sure of their interpretation of it. This is what this means, you know, this has to be what this is to me. And then there's going to be people, of course, who this track does not resonate with at all. It's not about that. You know, and again, this is my theme of 2021, is that I'm not making music, trying to make music that has something in it for everyone. Not only is this my first track of 2021, but this is far away from the way a lot of these tracks are going to go. I have a lot of beat-driven stuff, a lot of upbeat things, a lot of powerful stuff. I've got full-on orchestrations, 200 tracks deep. And I also have simple guitar and piano stuff. I mean, I'm across the board right now, and all I do is kind of follow the music to tell me what it wants to do. And I stay out of its way and open the doorways I think it needs to have. So, again, that's kind of where this is at with this thing. For those people that it resonates with, I want it to be able to be capable of, you know, allowing their imagination to deliver its meaning. You know, 50% of this is me and 50% of this is you. So then I think the other big thing here is tension and release. There definitely is a climax here in this track. And this call and answer thing, which is happening back and forth, is helping these two things happen at the same time. I want to go for the space that I'm going in here. I want to go for a lot of dynamic range and contrast. I want to be able to have dynamic contrast and range, and I'm going to use 4D mixing to help me with that. You know, as far as the arc of the things that have to happen, I think it's so very clear now that I can jump right into talking about 4D mixing for a second. And today, we're just going to discuss it as it occurs with the piano here in this track and what it's actually doing. So, when you imagine a 3D environment, there's 3 points of relative space inside of here, the way the space is designed. We have left to right this way, which is basically X, the X-axis, and we have Y, which is, you know, height, up and down. Then we have what is called Z. That's the one that moves into the distance, into the third dimension in this thing. And the way I'd like to talk about the keys in this track today, and the way I intend to mix these, and the way I intend to make this happen, is I'm going to work on even embellishing this piano call out and piano answering relationship as it is. I want this to feel, you know, like the piano is calling out and it's almost reaching backwards to something, either that maybe something that already happened, like a ghost of a memory or something that's back there in 3D space. Piano says here, the answer comes from back that way. Here, that way. Okay? You know, it should be fun to try to make that happen. But see, part of the advantage I have here on this track in the mixing and mastering is I knew that from the start. That thing revealed itself to me about this track way back when I ever wrote the first few bars of it and splurged those into the recording. So this brings up a very serious point about how I approach mixing and mastering. And by the way, this applies to every video I make. I don't think I know the right way of doing things. I just know a way. I don't think there are right ways or wrong ways. I just think there's ways. And my way right now, the focus of my way, is to get out of the way of the music and follow what the music wants me to do. And that happened on this piece back at the very beginning. So I had my original piano track here. I'm just going to point this out to you. Okay, so I am using actually two different pianos for this track. On track the call out, we have Ravenscroft 275, which is a it is all it can be for a grand piano. It's magnificent sound. And then for the answer, I chose to really custom detail this Noir piano to give me what it was I was looking for on this. I want it to have body, but I don't want it to be able to lose its ability to enunciate itself, because whether it's in the front or whether it's in the back, it is carrying the melody, and the melody is really a lot of what this track is about. So let's go ahead and take a listen here to the opening, and we'll talk about the choices that I made on this track to kind of start this journey. We're focusing entirely on the keys submix right now. Okay. Already that is starting to happen. What I'm going to do, since I'm using two different piano plugins, and this is what I did, is actually how I should put this, because I worked this up earlier. I'm using a really neat plugin from Waves. It's the pianocentric plugin, and it just gives you more options for piano sound and being able to alter, augment, diminish, and I mean that not in chord structure, I'm talking about in terms of sound. The thickness, the delay, the doubled effect of a piano, and it sounds like there's some other things going on under the hood here that sounds like phase and flange and other things that are causing some weird things, and it has a great set of plugins. I kind of customized this one a little bit to deliver what it was I was looking for. Now let me pull up some automation here on this and point out to you that I have applied this to the main submix on this, so that it's applying to everything that happens to the keys in this track. It gives it a sense of unification while maintaining the contrast. It puts something together between those two instruments that I like. Let me go ahead and I'll just play this a little bit and through the beginning, and I'll start off on a bypass, and then we'll activate it. Okay, I love that. And keeping in mind what I'm trying to do here, I think you can see where it's playing into my plan here. Now I've automated the intensity of the delayed effect to come up and come down. And one of the challenges I was faced with is, being that this is a track that does not follow rock strict delay, timing here up here in the tempo track. By the way, tempo track is something I use in almost every track I create, even if the tempo changes are ever so slight. I'm going to do a special video just on my philosophy on tempo tracking, the importance of it, why I pretty much do it with almost every piece of music I do, unless it is a completely tempoless, abstract thing. Okay. So let's listen to what the delayed effect is adding through this section right here, because this is important. Notice there is a little bit of microtonality going on. I'm using that word to describe the fact that there's pitch anomalies taking place right there. Those pitch anomalies are happening directly because the tempo is changing, and it is affecting the response of the delay effect in the plugin. Okay, this is what happens with delay effects. I like it. That's a happy accident that I'm going to take. It's adding a little bit of strangeness to this, and I don't know, it gives me a really cool feeling when I listen to that. Let's listen to that again. Watch for it when the play line crosses the point of incidence on the tempo. In context, and I especially like what it's doing through here. Listen. There's that strangeness, abnormality in the pitch again. I like it. Okay. Let's go ahead and get this out of the road next. All right, so a couple of important things here. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the discussion here of volume staging, gain staging, volume staging. So very important. Now you notice I did have one little clip when we played this before on the output, which is, I have to check and see what that was, because last I checked there was none of that happening. I might have a plug-in on there that's not supposed to be on there. Headroom is everything in the world. It is everything. It is my ability to come up with, accompaniment, tracking for new things, to even be able to hear ideas. It's hard for me to hear an idea trying to speak to me through the music when I have no headroom in a mix for that to go. I can feel that lack of headroom. It's so critical, and when you come down to the final phases of a mix and master, you're going to want to be able to have that all the time. And I'm just going to reach over here on the trim knob, and I'm going to dial these back. I'm going to grab them, the whole group, and I'm going to pull them down a little bit. I can do that right now. Yeah, is it going to shift the balance on the strings a little bit? Sure, it's going to shift the balance a little bit. But what I'm doing is giving myself a gift. A lot of people want to think that naturally the first thing you want to do is think about all that volume you can get, because volume somehow equals power. And especially, I understand how it works with electronic dance music and everything else. I know exactly what's going on there. It's just the biggest, most powerful things don't really happen because you're pushing the needle to minus 0.1 decibels. Here's a loudness penalty analyzer, and you can see I've got plenty of room here. When I look at the let me see if I can get that to come up. Yeah, no change, 4.6 decibels increase possible without penalty. I look at YouTube. Oh, I've got 4.6 decibel to increase. It's possible to take without having a penalty. And I'm still Still good here on Spotify and Pandora, although I don't know what's going on with iTunes there. I'll have to think about that more at a later time. I've got room. I've got room to breathe. I've got room to, swell the strings when I want to bust my moves where they need to be made in this mix without having to worry about red lights coming on and clipping taking place. All right, back to the 4D. What else can I do to make this happen a little bit better? Well, obviously, reverb is going to be a big part of this. And I'm kind of excited about the new Izotope reverb plugin, the Neoverb. And I've already got one going here that I'm pretty happy with. So let me just take a look here on this. Yeah, let me turn these off for a minute so that you can see exactly what's going on there. I'm going to pull this up. Love this plugin, and basically it uses a reverb assistant and listens to the track, and you tell it what you kind of want to go for. But, I build a lot of reverb myself, too much so I can even remember all of it, and I love having a little bit of a jumping off point on things. I think it's great. They've designed it really well. I mean, come on, it's Izotope. And you also have your reverb EQ, and reverb EQ is kind of a big deal. You just solo this off here. You can brighten up the feel of an entire track by putting a little bit of a boost, just a little subtle boost on the upper end of EQ. So that is a big part of this, to get this depth. And I might even increase that more on the answer. Like, let's say, what happens here if I decide that I want to go ahead and boost the EQ on this? Let's turn it on. Excuse me, boost the reverb on this track. It's reflections right there. Let me back this up where it's relevant. Go ahead and solo off the answer track. Okay, now it's getting distant back there. All right. I'm liking what's happening there. I'm going to move on now to the strings, where I'm going to have a little bit of a discussion about what's taking place here and what my plans are going to be for the strings. Let's go ahead and do that and do this. Again, I'm using submixes. Sometimes when I'm doing a big project, just to refresh your memory here, the bright gold is first violins. The yellow ochre is second violins. The orange is viola. The bright red is cello. And this dark brick red kind of color is the basses. It's a color scheme that I use all the time for keeping track of my string tracks. It really works for me. String tracks naturally have a warm sound to them anyway, so these warm tones help me. The warm colors help me stay on top of my organization for these things. The reason I have so many violin tracks is because I'm pulling from different sample resources. Now, I've already stemmed out here from MIDI. We're beyond that phase. And, of course, in other situations and other videos, you're going to see me discussing the MIDI side of things so much more. But this is where we're at here on this thing. Now, FYI, I've gone through here, and I have already done some different kinds of EQ on these different string tracks. Each EQ I've done on an individual basis is something I worked with to deal with whatever the situation was with that particular track. Like I'll play this violin one track and I'll bypass the EQ here. Let me try to turn this up for you. So talking about cutting low frequencies. I see this argument happening on the internet time to time. Do you always cut low frequencies or not? You know, you'll hear different ends of the spectrum. Some people say when you start cutting low frequencies, it affects the phase that's taking place inside of there. This phase shift is going to cause issues EQ-wise. And then you'll say somebody, well, just use linear phase EQ, and back and forth about this whole thing. Here's my take on this. And again, there's no right way or wrong way. If it's not working for you to cut every track on the low end, then don't do it. You know, you gotta make your own bed and sleep in it. So whatever it takes for you to do what you do. This is just my way. When I noticed this the first time, really, I hit a multi-track that was 100 tracks wide. There's low frequency information coming through. Let me see if I can find one here. I might not find it so much on a violin track, but I'll take a look anyway. I just cut that off to be nice and neat about it. There's low frequency information on a lot of these VST sampled instruments. You'll see it on the bottom of the EQ rumbling around there below the human ability to hear it. It's still showing on the spectrum analyzer. When you have that on one track, that's one thing. When you have it on two, it's another thing. When you have 60 tracks of audio taking place and all of those tiny little bits of bass frequency things add up, I run out of headroom and I run out of clarity. And this is how it is. You know, and I'm not a believer in gutting the bass frequencies on a track such that it affects the poise of the power of the music. However, I like to be able to hear what's going on inside of there too, and too much mud just ruins my fun time. Okay, so taking a look at this, the next thing that I'm going to do, and I'm not going to do this now in front of you just for the sake of it, you know, not probably being anything that great to watch. I am going to do a complete pass on the mix. You see there's a lot of volume automation that's happened inside of here. And I'm going to listen to the relationships that are happening inside of these tracks. I'm going to see if there's anything offending my ears there. Anything that's getting in the way of the purpose would be offensive to my ears. You're asking me what would be offensive. That's the thing. I want the story to flow. I want everything to help make that happen, and I'm pretty much sure that there's not much else here to do. A lot has already happened. I'm going to do that with the string tracks. Okay, I'm going to do that with the woodwind submix. There's a little bit of woodwinds happening there, and I'm going to do it with the percussion tracks as well. The idea is this. I'm going to conduct an experiment, and after I do this, my next experiment on the next episode is that I am going to use Izotope's Neutron on submixes. Not thinking I'm going to do it on all of these string tracks because this relationship is one I create myself. I'm the one that's now let me go ahead and solo this off. I guess we might as well just take a quick listen through here to see what's happening and talk about where the challenges are going to be. Let me make sure that we don't have any reverb engaged here. Okay. I think we should be good. If you think you hear reverb, that's actually the ambience of the room on the mics. There's a lot of that comes through, and I've selected microphone positions on some of these samples for that reason. Let's put some juice on this here. Okay. Let's move on through. Okay, that's a repeat of that last section. But when we come through here, we come into this climax area that is happening right around here. And you'll see volume sweeps upwards and suddenly a perceived softness into the build to a climax. Sweet and soft on the hit, but present in the volume. These are the notes that I've made that have been the groundwork for the way this sounds. Let me show you this, how this works. See, that's an orchestration trick I'm using right there. I'm cutting all those mid frequencies out of there and those bass frequencies to create a moment. Then when all those mid frequencies and bass frequencies come back in, it almost sounds like a warm wave washing over top of you, you know? Let me put it into context. Woodwinds are cranking. I like to hear a little bit more mid-range coming through there. So I'm going to listen through this. I'm going to create a checklist. That'll be on it. And that's where the challenge is, I think, on this whole production, is to be able to nail that moment, that climax. I'd like to be able, for the people that this speaks to, I like to help their hair stand up on the back of their neck if I can. I know that's a hell of a goal, but you know, hey, I like to deliver an experience for people. So yeah, then I'm going to do the same thing with the woodwinds. I'm going to do the same thing with the percussion. I'm going to engage neutron, and I'm going to come back to you with the results of that experiment next up on session number 2 of Seesaw. Okay? Thank you so much, everybody.